A couple weeks back, I talked about my hopes and dreams for E3 2021. It was a big half-hour video where I complained about Nintendo and Last of Us and Microsoft and whatnot. It's your average run-of-the-mill Phantom Beano video. The too long didn't watch version of that video is basically that I'm trying not to get my hopes too high because I've been disappointed enough times already. I had some predictions for what might show up there, and that wasn't really based so much on things that I wanted to see. I had some pipe dreams, but I tried to keep my expectations in check. In retrospect, that probably should have been my philosophy all along so I wouldn't experience the disappointments of previous years. My earliest memories of E3 were in 2009. This was the first I'd even heard of E3, and probably around the time I actually started reading up on the video game industry. I didn't watch any of the actual event, but there were a couple YouTubers I watched who talked about it who may or may not even make videos anymore. At this time, I was still in my Nintendo worship phase, so Nintendo was really the only company that I cared about. As far as I knew, Microsoft did some Halo stuff and unveiled Project Natal, which is now known as the Kinect. Sony showed off an early version of the PlayStation Move. I love how the guy demonstrating it had to clarify that this isn't what the final product would look like.
Its final look will change, so I want to stress this is an engineering prototype.
I think he knew that everyone thought it looked like a dildo or a vibrator or something, and was trying to subtly assure people that the final product would be way less gay, because everyone knows that Sony is the super straight heterosexual console for the hot-blooded heterosexual gamer. I don't know where I'm going with this bit. By this time, I was getting fed up with the Wii's motion controls, so needless to say, I was a little perplexed as to why the other consoles would start adding motion bullshit when they were doing just fine in my opinion. It was very clear that they were trying to get in on the Wii success. Sony and Microsoft were doing well, but the Wii was absolutely on fire at this point with Wii Sports and whatnot. So Sony and Microsoft start hopping up and down like coked up kangaroos going like, hey, look at us, we can do boxing too, we can play tennis too, we can golf, we can do that shit, we're cool. And I just couldn't care less. But today I'm going to do a deeper dive into E3 2009, focusing largely on the three big boys. I'm hoping for this to be a less serious, more chill video this time, especially because the internet is literally on fire right now because of a Minecraft YouTuber who maybe did some stuff or had some stuff done to him, or maybe not, or maybe he did. I don't really care. I'm getting too old to care about that shit, but today I just want to take a little fun nostalgia trip. I figure all I do on this channel is take nostalgia trips anyway, so just for shits and giggles, we're going back to 2009. There's a song called I'm Blue by Eiffel 65, which is extremely popular for some reason, even though it was recorded over a decade ago at this point. I was like 11, I had no idea what the fuck was going on back then. It don't matter, let's go. The funny thing about E3 in previous years is how business-oriented it often was. Nowadays, E3 is a big, bombastic promotional advertisement with fucking circus clowns and shit. You got Reggie killing people in the audience.
Come on, Reggie, give us Mother 3! How about this instead?
But back then, it was more about the sales number and the stonks and shit, and the Sony conference captured that pretty well. The 2009 Sony E3 started out with this boring-ass dude talking, oh, we sold 10 million, wait, no, we sold 12 million, ooh, $9 billion from Latin America, oh, it's Uruguay, he gave us $15 billion, and then it's just like, even as they started talking about the actual games, the business shit never ends. This guy starts talking about marketing to 12-year-old girls, and then immediately we see a bunch of grown men in the audience cheering for a Hannah Montana PSP. What is happening in this presentation? It wasn't until 10 minutes in that they showed off an actual game with Uncharted 2. It wasn't even a dramatic trailer, it was just 5 straight minutes of unedited gameplay, which in a way is actually better in my opinion. E3 trailers have a habit of just straight up fucking lying about how good the games are, which we're gonna talk about later. So just to show you straight up like, look at this, it's Uncharted, we ain't bullshitting you, you know, that's a pretty good approach in my opinion. I like that, but it certainly made things less exciting, and that kind of sets the tone for the whole presentation. It felt far more corporate oriented than gaming oriented. In other words, this shit was fucking dry. You know, people make fun of the Ubisoft thing where the guy crashes through a stage prop on purpose, but at least you remember that dumb shit. This presentation is boring. I mean, I'm sure the suits were just creaming their linen drawers with excitement, but I'm not. They showed off MAG, which I've heard of maybe twice in my life, so I'm guessing this is a game nobody cares about. The big thing was was 256 simultaneous online players, which I'm sure is way less cool in practice than they were making it sound. Remember the PSP Go? No, of course not. What the fuck is this? They kept saying, oh, it's marketed to be to the digital consumer. Look how tiny it is, and look, it's rotating. It's kind of like how the PS5 has a disc-free, fully digital model, but for the PSP, I don't know, man. The PSP was always funny to me because they sold like 80 million units, which is technically phenomenal, but I think I only ever met like one person in my life who had one, let alone a PSP Go. That console was a joke. Everyone and their grandma was shitting on it. That's all I remember. They did show Gran Turismo running on the PSP Go. I gotta be honest, I never cared about racing sims that much. Maybe this is just an outsider's out-of-touch opinion, but I find it very hard to get excited for these kinds of games. You know how boomers like me always shit on anime-style JRPGs and say they all look the same? Well, at least JRPGs tend to have a story or a plot or even sometimes slightly interesting gameplay. This is not that. These games are literally identical to me. Just the graphics and maybe the handling is a little different. I'm sorry, I can't get excited for driving games. I just can't. Unless it's something crazy that soups up the formula, I couldn't give that much of a shit. That being said, the graphics look pretty great, especially for a portable system from that era, and considering its competition was the DS, which was a souped up N64 basically, this looked very next gen. That turned out well. Then they busted out Hideo Kojima, dressed for success. Check out his belt buckle, that's king shit right there. He had a trailer for MGS Peace Walker where the narrator sounds like Roy Campbell. I don't know if it's actually him. This was easily my favorite part of the conference because that's an actually good game that I care about. I feel like this was an underappreciated game in the series. It's stunning how they managed to convert the over-the-top shit from the main console games onto a handheld machine. At first I wasn't a fan of the mission-based structure, but I learned to love it as I realized that meant that if I fucked up a perfect run, I could just restart the mission instead of throwing out an entire save file. And just from the trailer, it was very clear that this game pushed the PSP to the brink of destruction. Then there was this weird trailer for PlayStation Home, which is a life sim nobody ever talked about. The game had various references to PlayStation's own IPs, and I know what you're thinking, that just sounds like PlayStation Animal Crossing. But it's actually not, because where Animal Crossing tends to be at least somewhat endearing and charming, this is not. Rockstar announced a game called Agent, which I never heard of, so it probably sucked. Alright, so I looked it up. Apparently they didn't make the game because it was dragged through development hell for almost a decade until the trademark was declared as abandoned by the United States Patent and Trademark Office. So yeah, this game is so shitty that it doesn't exist. Good going, Rockstar. Assassin's Creed 2 is probably one of my favorite games in the series. I got a platinum trophy on that shit, so yeah, I played it a lot. It's not perfect, but with Assassin's Creed you kinda gotta expect that, right? But they showed off Da Vinci's flying machine, which was pretty cool. I often forget how visually impressive this was at the time. All the buildings and the densely detailed cityscapes. Doesn't look as good as the shit we have today, but these graphics were crazy when it came out. They showed off some Final Fantasy 13 and then immediately showed Final Fantasy 14, which isn't a JRPG, but it's actually an online MMO JRPG. Or do they call that a JMMORPG? I don't know, I like to play shooting games, and Final Fantasy is not. But I just find that hilarious. Even before they released 13, they already basically finished the next one. They showed off some prototype move stuff. I remember thinking it looked kinda cool, but not caring way too much because motion controls are still motion controls. I gotta say, I can't think of another time when a grown man wrote down his own name and got applauded for it, but I guess if you're doing it with motion controls, that is an achievement. Mod Nation Racers is Mario Kart with custom characters and custom tracks. That's pretty neat. I never got to play this one, but it would be nice to see Mario Kart have custom tracks. Did they have that in Mario Kart DS, or am I just making that up? Wait, no, that's Diddy Kong Racing. Okay, never mind. By far, the funniest announcement was Last Guardian, and I say that's funny because this game took an infamously long time to make. It was the third in the Eco trilogy, and it wouldn't come out for another 7 years on an entirely different platform. It would go on to become a fascinating piece of art, but probably not a game you'd call fun, but it was still very impressive. But then they ended it off with a trailer for Gran Turismo 5. Really? That's the big send-off announcement? A racing sim? Alrighty then, it's your conference, I don't really care. I have a YouTube channel nobody is aware of, my opinion doesn't matter. Oh wait, never mind, look at that, it's God of War. Alright, forget everything I just said. Okay, that was lame. Now here's Microsoft's press conference. The first 16 minutes of it are blocked in Canada for copyright reasons. That doesn't make sense to me, but whatever, copyright law, it's your special day. From what I did see, it's way more about the games and less about the shitty business side of it. Modern Warfare 2. I get the sense that this is one of the defining titles of the series. It's one of the few that I hear people talk about still. I played part of my way through the campaign on PS3 and I guess it's alright. Again, much like racing games, I find it hard to care about this, but at the same time, I was always really impressed by the graphics and frame rate on these games. But you gotta understand, all I had was a Wii at the time. They showed off Final Fantasy XIII, which was very funny to me because they had it at the Sony conference too. I love it when game devs show off multiplats like they did something special. They all do this, padding the shit out with multiplats that are just as playable on other platforms. I guess you could say I did not finish writing this sentence in the script, so I guess that's it. I love how this guy comes up and says the biggest blockbusters of every genre made their home on Xbox 360. That's funny. I could have sworn Sony man said the exact same thing, so who do I believe, huh? Then some dudes from Epic Games showed off a game called Shadow Complex. I never played this game, but if this was announced today, I'd probably be pretty excited. It's Metroid, but with a lot more reliance on environmental combat, like how you can shoot these wires down. I'm betting this game is very popular with speedrunners. Up next, they got a Mario Kart game with custom characters. A lot of variety at these presentations. We got multiplats, racing games, and even some actually good ones. This was a good year. Crackdown 2, which is apparently better than Crackdown 3, which came out almost a decade later. Left 4 Dead 2 is a relic of a different era when Valve actually made video games. Splinter Cell Conviction had this extremely dramatic and badass trailer. I must admit I never played any of these games except the first one, which according to my memory had really bad controls that pissed me off so bad I shut it off. Mind you, that was years ago, so maybe it isn't as bad as I remember. From what I gather, this was a clean evolution of the previous games, and from the gameplay demo, I gotta say that stealth looks funner than shit. It's very open-ended and non-linear, offering a shitload of dumb shit you can do. I think I said shit too many times. I have no idea how accurate this ended up being to the final product, but it still looks pretty crazy. I think my favorite part of re-watching these presentations is, by far, seeing older games that I didn't get to play that actually look fun. Much like recent E3s, only a few of these games are ones that I actually give a shit about. But when I do see them, it's very exciting. Forza? I don't give a shit about Forza. What always blows my mind about racing games is how they always have the best graphics of any video games in the world. Devs apparently have access to this exceptional graphical technology and they always use it on driving fucking cars. Well, the truth is probably that the environments take a hit or something to reserve processing power to make the cars look good. I'm sure it's a lot more technical and complicated than I'm making it out to be, but anyway, Halo 3 ODST. I don't know anything about Halo. I beat the first game and part of the second one and pretty much said, yep, it's Halo. The truth is, any game where you walk around and shoot stuff is pretty hard to fuck up in my opinion. Not impossible, but hard. Halo Reach is definitely Halo. Alan Wake is a game that I hear about at random intervals, but I still had no idea what kind of game it was or what it was about until I saw this trailer. It appears to be a narrative-driven shooty game relying on a bunch of environmental storytelling, so yeah, I guess I gotta play it. They showed off some app that lets you listen to music, I guess Spotify before everyone used Spotify. You know what, I don't get these music apps. Just look up the music on YouTube, forehead. Then they showed some Netflix and TV stuff. I imagine they were trying to get in on the PS3's success where it's simultaneously a media center that could play anything. The funniest thing is when they advertised the Zune video streaming service, which they said would be the best way to watch movies and TV. Yeah, you all used fucking Zune before, right? Then they jumped into the social networking crap, which was really dry. We're gamers, we're not social people, we're cockroaches, we don't care about connecting with people. Just look at what people said about Death Stranding. That game was all about connecting people and everyone hated it. They just want to shoot people, which is a great segue into the next part, where they bring out Kojima to talk about Metal Gear Rising, another multiplat, which is weird because earlier in the presentation they said everything from then on would be exclusive, so I don't know what's happening anymore. Then they finally busted out the Kinect. Now, today the Kinect is viewed as a joke at best and a dystopian surveillance technology at worst, but back then when it was still Project Natal, it was a huge deal. You can use your body as the controller? That's fucking crazy. And it was. if you like to play shit games. If you like good games though, you'll probably stick to the controller. Then out of nowhere, they busted out Steven Spielberg to geek out about it. The way they were talking made it sound like he'd somehow be involved in future Kinect games. Spoiler alert, he wasn't. So much for that. This presentation is just precious. Not even in a scripted, curated presentation can they make the Kinect look good.
Ever wonder what the bottom of an Avatar shoe looks like? Well, bam! There it is.
My favorite part is when they decided to take a swing at the Wii remote controls.
This isn't a game where you end up on the sofa just using some kind of preset waggle commands.
You know, if this attempt at a dunk was presented in any other context, I'd be all here for it. But the sad part is that they're shitting on Nintendo while simultaneously acting like they're better than them. Like their shitty motion gimmick that nobody will care about in 5 years is better than Nintendo's. It's just kinda pathetic, like those 3DO ads that said the other consoles were for babies or whatever. I especially love this demo with Milo, the 10-year-old virtual Xbox kid, where the player could have a conversation with him and play catch with him and shit. He behaved like a real human being, and it looks so real and so cool and so organic and dynamic. But I would be remiss if I didn't point out the biggest, most impressive aspect of this game, which is that it is a completely fucking fakey fake, scripted as fuck, fabricated demonstration that they're framing as a dynamic and organic experience, and none of this was ever going to be a real video game, and even this isn't a video game. It's a 100% staged and rehearsed demonstration, and that little boy is a pre-rendered cutscene or something. Every single word this man is saying right here is a complete lie, and he knows it, and he just keeps going. He keeps digging the hole, and it's just so astonishingly bad in retrospect.
Every single year, companies lie about their video games. They show fake versions of the product because it's not done yet. The problem with this one is that they're having a voiceover from the creator of the game tell you that everything's real while they're faking it. They clearly made a fake pipe dream product when pitching the Kinect, so people thought it was capable of more things than it was. And if you're thinking that's kind of a stretch, you're putting words in their mouth, why don't we check an IGN interview with the creator of the game 2 years ago?
It was a disaster, Ryan.
And at last we have Nintendo. They start with the announcement of new Super Mario Bros. Wii. They were hamming up the 4-player mode, which was pretty cool at the time. They had 4 upper management peeps from Nintendo who are all terrible at the game. I love watching execs play their own games, because somehow they're always bad at them, and it's really funny to see. But where the hell is Reggie, huh? Cammy Dunaway is fine, but she's not Reggie, is she? Then we have the Wii Fit Plus, which is the Wii Fit, except there's more stuff, I guess. I never did the Wii Sports and Fitness stuff. I don't need fitness. I eat 500 milligrams of sodium, 3 kilograms of sugar, and a pound of trans fat a day. Phantom Bane does not care about living a long and healthy life, okay? It's a miracle of biology that any of my internal organs are still functional. Wait, what were we talking about? Oh shit, it's Reggie, there he is! Reggie starts talking about the Wii Motion Plus, which you probably remember was an add-on for the Wii Remote that made it actually good. I shit on motion controls a lot, but in all honesty, I was impressed with how well it worked and how it pretty much transformed the Wii Remote into an actually good piece of plastic. Eat your heart out, Kinect. They showed Wii Sports Resort, which I gotta admit was a game that I actually had some fun with. A big thing I hate about motion controls is that they don't fucking work, except this time where it actually kinda did work, which was impressive. Bill Trinan and Reggie have a basketball match, and for the entire duration Reggie is just shitting all over this guy, and it's simultaneously the funniest and saddest thing I've ever seen at a Nintendo conference. Next to Wii Music, of course.
I haven't played basketball since I was in middle school, so I'm gonna have to channel a much younger version of myself to beat you. Do you think you can handle a 4'9" 8th grader?
4'9"? Is that how tall you were then, or how tall you are now?
Reggie talks about some shovelware sports games which now have Wii Motion Plus functionality before moving on to RPGs. If you've watched me for a bit, you probably know how I generally feel about RPGs, but this year I'm trying to turn that around and take more chances on RPGs that I have historically dismissed, and I am open to suggestions. Apparently there was a Final Fantasy game on Wii which I just realized existed, and then Kingdom Hearts 358 over 2 days, which I cannot believe is the actual title. Sometimes I hear people making fun of Kingdom Hearts titles and I think it's just hyperbole, but then I remember that this game exists. For fuck's sake, dude, they're out of control. They need help. Like, actual help. Did you guys know that Nintendo used to make RPGs and they were all amazing and funny and actually fun to play? Oh yeah, it's true. I haven't actually played Inside Story, but I have played Partners in Time, which is considered one of the worst ones, and I actually liked that one, so I imagine this game is a wet dream. It's gotta be better than Color Splash anyway. Then they announced a new Golden Sun. I don't know anything about this one, but maybe I'll look into it as I rip off the JRPG band-aid. Women's Murder Club? That sounds scary, but don't worry because the cops are here. Cop the Recruit is an action game for the DS made by Ubisoft. Looks cool, like 5 out of 10 on IGN cool. Great job, Ubisoft. Style Savvy was some fashion game aimed at teenage girls, and Cammy goes on to say,
Nintendo DS equals diversity.
And nothing says diversity like little girls and police officers. Remember the DSi? Cause I completely forgot. I remember 2 of my brothers got the DSi and I was kinda jealous at the time, but in retrospect, I really should not have been. It was a DS Lite that couldn't play GBA games and had a couple extra gimmicky camera games. Now, be honest, do you want to play Photo Dojo or do you want to play an imported copy of Mother 3 that's entirely in a language you can't understand? Which way, Nintendo man? Mario vs. Donkey Kong Minis march again. I haven't met a single person who is even aware these games exist. WarioWare DIY, another game I never hear anyone talk about. Apparently you can make your own WarioWare style micro games, which sounds cool. It's like a baby steps version of Nintendo's Game Builder Garage thing. Spirit Tracks was the sequel to Phantom Hourglass. I already didn't like Hourglass that much, so I didn't give that much of a shit, but at least it's got trains, which are way cooler than boats. They made a big deal about the DSi's social networking stuff, which seems to be a theme this year. Mass social media is still relatively new at this time, but it's gaining traction at lightning speed. Wii Vitality Sensor? This thing creeps me out. I don't want Nintendo to know my vital signs.
Relaxation aside, the fact is, we've still got a little stimulation to deliver.
Come again? Oh, they're talking about Mario. Okay, never mind. I shit on the Galaxy games for their linearity, but I want to make it clear that these are still very good games in my eyes, and Galaxy 2 is often considered even better than the original. That being said, I was perplexed as to why they made a sequel to Galaxy as opposed to Sunshine or 64, but little did I know that everyone actually hates those games because they're a bunch of losers. I've gotten maybe 38% through Galaxy 2, and I like it so far. Maybe I'll actually beat it one day, but otherwise, this announcement was hype, and I can imagine the excitement of a lot of people, and that's one of the most special things about watching these old conferences. Imagining the feelings of excitement, anticipation, and surprise that gamers felt at this moment in time. Then they showed off some edgy third-party software like the Conduit, which has a 69 on Metacritic, so I guess you could say it's nice. Yeah. Resident Evil Darkside Chronicles is like a rail shooter Resident Evil, which is funny because I feel like everyone who plays Resident Evil the first time tries playing it like a shooter, even though it's not supposed to be. I remember I tried playing it like that, and I was so pissed off that every enemy took 7 trillion bullets to kill, but I guess Capcom picked up on that and made a shooter just for me. I want to shoot things. Is that really a tall order? Then there's Dead Space for Wii. I want to say the graphics are good for Wii standards, but I mean every game that's not Wii Sports looks good for a Wii title, right? This is a baby boy machine.
Could a new, edgier game also be coming from us? The answer is, how about this instead?
Metroid Other M was being developed by Team Ninja. You may know Team Ninja from a variety of things, but mostly as the company who made all the fighting games with the Jello boob physics. I guess Nintendo looked at Samus and then looked back at Boob Ninja and said, "Oh yeah! This is happening!" The actual game turned out to be one of the more divisive games in the series, and I can't say I remember any particularly distinctive boob physics, but, you know, not that I was looking for them. I played it once, and from what I remember, I was expecting it to be way worse than it actually was, but until I do a full playthrough one day, that's all I got. Now, who else was there? While Ubisoft rolled out Joel McHale to start the show, he spends a shitload of time building up Ubisoft as a wonderful company where everyone is equal and loves each other and respects each other's ideas and is just a blast to work for. That aged beautifully.
I've had 2 kids, and
I regret that.
They announced Uplay because why would I ever play a video game without going through a dog shit secondary third-party launcher? Yves Guillemot starts talking some more shit, Phantom Bino falls asleep, we got the same Splinter Cell trailer from the Microsoft thing, Red Steel 2, the sequel to Red Steel 1, which was a shitty game for the shitty Wii remote, but this time they got Wii Motion Plus, so they had the opportunity to make it good. And from what I heard, they actually did. Admittedly, this looks like a lot of fun, but again, I never got to play it, so I don't know for certain. Ruse is a strategy game for nerds, skip. Soccer game, skip. Then they jumped to the casual games. As I said in my Wii U video, I was a hardcore gamer who hated casuals. I only played real games like Chicken Shoot for Wii. Shaun White snowboarding. The only reason I know this game even exists is because of Donkey.
Shaun White is an extreme snarfboarder, living it up in Beverly Hills, snorting coke and fucking whores.
Ninja Turtles game, I don't care. They brought out James Cameron to discuss a collaboration to make a game based on Avatar. I watched that movie a billion times when it came out, and yet I can barely remember the name of 5 characters. Can you? Without Googling it? I want to know. Pause the video and see if you can name 5 characters from that movie. Without Googling it. EA announced Crysis 2 and every graphics card in existence committed suicide, so yeah. There were a bunch of companies at E3. I'm aware I didn't talk about everything. I only really wanted to focus on the big boys and take an opportunity to talk shit about Ubisoft, but this E3 is important to me, not just because it was the first one I can remember, but also because it was an interesting transitional period. We're starting to see the other platforms jump in on the motion control gimmicks. We're seeing consoles start to integrate social networking stuff. I think it was a very important era in the lineage of the gaming industry, especially when you look at the current gaming landscape where everyone can now share their clips from their games immediately to Twitter. Basically, at the end of the day, video games are kinda dumb, and you should stay hydrated. I don't know, it's summertime. Hey cousins, I just wanted to let you know that at this time it is my intention to stream my reaction to a few of this year's E3 presentations on Twitch. I'm not making any promises because shit happens and I probably won't get to all of them even in the best case scenario, whether it's because I don't care about whoever's presenting or whatever. At the very least, I am planning on watching Nintendo and Microsoft's, maybe Take-Two because they said they'd be back at E3 in a big way. Whatever that means. My heart says GTA 6, but my brain says GTA 5 shit, so I don't know. To tell you the truth, I haven't even read the schedule yet, so I gotta do that, but for now, thank you for watching my dumbass video, and I'll probably see you again sometime next week.